and I've been a little bit tardy in sending us live because I just was very quickly briefing our experts to make sure they're ready to give you loads of great content. Hopefully we'll have a couple more of you logging in soon. So I'm just going to kind of wing it for a minute or two whilst we let people join us. Anyone who is in already, if you want to drop something in the chat about what sort of products you sell, that would be super helpful because that helps us know how to, what sort of ways in which to frame up our conversation. So anyone who's out there doing that, if you could put that in the chat box, that would be great. Okay, so I think what we'll do is we will go live and we'll get started. So hopefully you can all see my slide deck because this is one of our Keep Optimizing expert panel Q&A webinars. One day I will think of a shorter name for it, but that is not something I have yet achieved because it is what it says on the tin. We get the experts from the podcast on to this webinar to do a Q&A around the topic we've been covering all month and to answer your questions as well. So today's topic is organic social media. That endless e-commerce question mark of should we, shouldn't we? We know we should. How do we justify it? It takes so much time, but you need to do it right. And it can be so powerful if you get it right. So minefield in the world of e-commerce. It's a difficult one to master. So I'm sure we're going to have plenty to talk about today. I'm sure you guys will have some interesting questions for us along all of it as well. Our vague theme is what should be on your to-do list right now. So that's vaguely what we're going to cover, but anything social media related, as long as it's not ads, we're trying to avoid the topic of ads. We are more than interested to have your questions. If you've got questions for us, you can add those into the chat box. So by all means, start adding your questions now because we have had moments where the audience have not asked their questions until the end, which means I run out of time to ask your questions. So I've got loads, but I'd love to ask your questions too. So please do make sure you get those into that chat box early so as we can get them asked for you. Okay, so who have I got joining me today? Well, I've got Matt Edmondson, who's an e-commerce entrepreneur and coach. He also runs his own e-commerce businesses, and he was on the podcast talking about why should we do social media? Yes, we went head on that one. And then my other guest is Dan Gingiss, who is a customer experience keynote speaker and coach, which kind of undersells him a bit, I think. Dan's written multiple books on how to use social media to both improve your customer service and improve your sales. And you can get Dan's twice monthly customer experience newsletter, which is filled with tips, articles, videos, and more to help you create remarkable experiences for your customers by going to bit.ly/Gingiss email. And I should have said, of course, you can find out more about what Matt's up to at mattedmondson.com. Then you've got me, host of the Keep Optimizing podcast and the eCommerce MasterPlan podcast as well, which is now multi-award winning as of this week, which is kind of exciting. And you can find the podcast, well, you guys know this. You can find it on Apple, on Spotify, Google, Amazon, wherever you want to listen to your podcast, you'll find us and find out everything we're up to at keepoptimizing.com. But what I cannot do is do a panel webinar like this without some guest experts. So Dan and Matt, could you come and join me, please?
Hi, Chloe.
Hello, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent. So I will start off with each of you telling the audience, because I already know you, but tell the audience a little bit more about you. And we'll start off with you, Dan. So do you want to just let the audience know a bit more about you and your focus on this world of social, please?
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, I'm a customer experience speaker and coach, and I come at it from a marketing perspective because I spent more than 20 years in corporate America as a marketer at companies like McDonald's, Discover, Humana. So I've been in the trenches, I've done the work, and lived to tell the tale about it. But I discovered along the way that focusing on experience was the best way to accelerate your sales and marketing. Because when we get other people talking about us, that's the word of mouth marketing, the kind of the holy grail that folks in social media and other places are always trying to achieve. And one of the best ways to do that is actually to focus inward and look at your own customers and try to make great experiences for them. So I was thrilled to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Cool. And I love how you open that up, because that is definitely a question we're going to be, or a topic we will be touching on if I get to ask my questions rather than the audiences as we go through this. And Matt, hello. How are you doing? Thank you for joining us from the warehouse, the coal face of e-commerce right now.
Yeah. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me. And I'm literally in our warehouse post Black Friday weekend. It is absolute pandemonium here today. I'm not going to lie. We have just got, and because of COVID, it's much more complex because you've got to keep people further apart. And so, yeah, it's chaos. So no, thanks for having me on. It's great to be here from the warehouse. And yes, I've been in e-commerce since 2002, running my own e-commerce businesses, and I now get to travel the world doing coaching. We have an e-commerce podcast. So I get to talk to great people like you, Claire, on the show, which is great. And on the not so glamorous days, I'm in the warehouse picking and packing because there's so much to do.
Well, I should say, Matt, if you have a packing emergency whilst we're doing this webinar, we completely understand if you need to run away and find someone to sell a tape or something.
No, it's quite nice. We had my printer just behind the computer packed up like literally 5 minutes ago, so I can't print any more packing slips off at the moment.
It's a good problem to have, though, if you have too many packing slips.
Let me tell you, Dan, it's a fantastic problem to have. And I have to be honest with you, I know it's not what we're talking about, but I love the buzz of it. I absolutely, post Black Friday, there's just such a good vibe, it's great.
Yeah, I've always learned something. Whenever you go to see a retailer, if they've got a warehouse, you have to agree to look at it. It's like saying no, I won't come into your warehouse. No, I don't need the tour of the warehouse. It's fine. It's like saying no, I don't want to see the pictures of your children. It's like
no, you will see the warehouse.
Yeah, always go and see the warehouse if you're trying to sell to an e-commerce business or trying to get a job at one. Always agree to the warehouse tour. And I, at one point, 10, 15 years ago now, I was a consultant and spending a day in the office of an e-commerce business who had an on-site warehouse. Whilst I was working with them, they migrated it to a 3PL. So they lost it. And they were so nervous about not having that buzz around the office. And would the business even work if it wasn't there? And so they went through this whole roller coaster of emotions. So it's always an interesting space. Right. Everyone out there, we are not here to talk warehousing. We're not even here to talk Black Friday. Actually, we're here to talk about social media. So all of you out there who are watching this live, those of you who managed to carve out the space in your diary during what I know is a very, very busy week, if you've got questions for us about social media, please do add them in the chat box. And as I said earlier, add them now. Don't wait till the end, because if you all wait till the end, I can't ask your questions. I only get to ask mine. So please, questions now. But I want to start by picking up on something which is definitely a theme during our podcast episodes and which Dan has already touched on, which is when I put together this month about talking about organic social media, I thought we might talk maybe 1 out of the 4 episodes. A quarter of the content might be about getting other people to talk about you on social media. But it was very much the theme. At least 75% of what we talked about was making other people talk about you and not talking about yourself. So I thought we'd start with posing the question, is it more important, should we, if we're going to split our social media effort, what percentage of it should be on writing our own posts, creating our own stuff to put out there, and what percentage should be on getting other people via whatever method to do it? And Dan, as you posed the question, you posed this topic earlier, what would you say?
Well, Chloe, there's a reason why we call it social media, and there's 2 words that comprise social media. And I think that often companies only think of one of those words. They think of the media part. True story, I was a part of a company once that actually thought it might be a good idea to repost their television commercials on Facebook. And I said, people don't want to watch your television commercials when they're on TV. They definitely don't want to watch them on Facebook, right? And so the media part of these channels, companies look at as, I get the megahorn and I get to shout my message and everybody's really interested in my message. And I got news for you, unfortunately. Unless you're a company like Coca-Cola or Starbucks or Nike, that people actually do want to hear from you every day. Most companies the customers and the prospects do not want to hear from you every single day. And so you have to remember the other part, which is the social part. And the reason I got into the service side of social media was that I took one look as a marketer at social media. This is, obviously a number of years ago, and I had done pretty much every other marketing channel. And the first thing that kind of wowed me about social media was this is the first marketing channel where people can talk back to us. Yeah. And think about that for a minute. Like every other channel we have, we just push stuff out and the other person is the recipient. And now all of a sudden they can talk back and they have a voice. And so to me, the answer to your question is I really think it's about 50-50, is that you've got to spend as much time engaging with people and talk in the social aspect, at least in this channel, as you do in the marketing aspect or pushing out your own content. And again, great ways to do that are just to respond to people that comment to you, that tag you, that mention you, or that are engaging already with the content that you're putting out there. When I engage with a brand and then there's radio silence, I don't feel real good about that brand. But man, when they engage back with me, I feel like I am their most important customer. And that feels really good to me.
Yeah, I'm as you're saying that, I'm thinking of times when I've screen grabbed when someone's retweeted me and just been ridiculously excited about it. Oh, look, they actually, yes, even I do that. Matt, so we've got Dan saying 50-50 split between your own content and interacting with others. What would you say?
I'd say actually that's a really good rule of thumb. I think a lot of it depends on who you are as a brand and what you're talking about, but the role of getting customers to talk about you, like Dan said, I still think is the most effective form of marketing. It has been for thousands of years in some respects. Do you know what I mean? The art of storytelling, the art of passing the message on like that. And I think we live in a society where people want to feel like they contribute. Do you know what I mean? If you think about, I think about my kids in the classroom, and they sit there. And education's not changed since the Victorian age, has it? You kind of sit there and you consume this content, and they talk to you, and you kind of have to write notes. There's no outlet back. Whereas I think with social media, people feel like they can contribute, they can give, and they can have impact. So you've got the customer service side, of course, but I think you've also got your key evangelists, your real brand advocates. Who just need to be let loose. And so encouraging them to do that on social media and to talk about you and to shape what you're doing. I think, if you've got good brand advocates, it's a brilliant way for them to outlet that and not just sit and just be told all the time, but they can contribute and they can add in the conversation.
And Matt, the funny thing about that is that the bigger the company, the more worried they tend to be about customers doing that, right? Because they're controlling the message. They want the brand voice and all that, and then all of a sudden you have other people talking about you, and it makes them nervous. And we've on my podcast we've covered a couple of stories where brands I think have made the wrong decision to try to quash people's enthusiasm for their brand because it didn't quite match up to what they wanted to talk about. There's a kind of a famous case at this point of a fast food restaurant where one of their employees was shooting some videos about basically their secret menu and kind of how to get around their menu. Now, this employee was a huge fan, and these videos got tons of engagement. But not only did the company shut it down, they fired the employee because they didn't want that person putting out messages that didn't match their brand voice. And to me, that's a huge mistake because those are the people that are most loyal to your brand. And those are the ones you want to encourage.
And I wonder actually if that company now regrets firing that fella. Do you know what I mean? Whether they look back and go, actually, that was a really stupid thing to do. Do you know what I mean? So. Because we sit here and we go, that was a stupid thing to do. But I kind of hope that they do as well. Do you know what I mean? I'll be intrigued to know.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy, isn't it? Because it's like you become kind of an Uber fan. You become you feel like one of the crowd as a customer if you know how to get something special. It's like there's a few. I live in a very rural area. We have a very local pub, and there are some of us who are able to order special meals from a proper really nice pub. Okay, yes, could I have the pita prawn salad? Which is, there's not even prawns on the menu. I don't know where they get the prawns from, but it's like we have these special ones. It's like, I know you haven't got the sweet potato fries on the menu, but could I have that one with the sweet potato? It's exactly the same as the secret recipes at the fast food. You want to be part of that in crowd as a customer. So it's,
you do.
It's bizarre. Right, we've got an audience question, so we're going to go straight to this, which is from Giorgio, and Giorgio has been on the podcast, and I know him personally. He's awesome, and I always cannot pronounce his name. So apologies right now, because I know I'm pronouncing it wrong, Giorgio. Sorry. He says, I find it so hard to start social media. So I think we're talking about doing your own social media, your own post, because there's so much that's possible. But what would be the best first baby step to take? And to give you guys a bit of background, I'll say we're selling a kind of a gift product. Let's keep it simple like that. So for a gift retailer, where would be the first putting yourself out there steps to take on a social channel? And whoever wants to jump in first, because I know that's a really big question. May.
Well, I'll jump in because we just entered December and we're about to hit my 8-year anniversary of being on Twitter. Wow. And if you go look at the date that I joined Twitter in December of 2012, that is the exact date that I took over the social media team at Discover Card, the credit card company in the US. And I said to myself, man, if I'm going to run a social media team, I better figure out this Twitter thing, right? I signed up for Twitter on that day. And at the time, a mentor of mine in the company who was very active on Twitter, I went to him and I was like, what do I do? How do I start? Like, I don't know what a hashtag is. I don't even know where to start. And his answer to me, which I never forgot, was the old Nike slogan, just do it. He said, just get in there and start posting. And as you post, you're going to start learning what works for you and what doesn't. You're going to experiment with a hashtag and change it up, or with an image, with a video, etc. What you can't do is go onto social and try to figure it out by lurking, which is what most people do. They say, okay, well, I'm going to set up an account, but I'm not going to actually post. And the problem with that is you never really figure out what it's like to put yourself out there if all you're doing is watching. For a gift, I would say, hey, social's becoming more and more visual every day. So start with something that is either a photo or a video of your product, talking about, maybe it's just you demoing your product or doing a box unopening. Something like that is where I would start. Throw on a hashtag or two, depending on the platform, to try to get audiences that don't necessarily follow you, and just do it. And you'll start to get more comfortable with it as you go along. Yeah,
very good.
Matt, what would you say? Are you just completely on the just do it as well?
Kind of, yeah. I think, I funnily enough, I've got Twitter open here as we're talking. I've just followed you, Dan. So I actually went on your Twitter profile as you're talking. I think there's something quite quintessentially fabulous about just having a go and not giving a flying flip about the consequence. And people ask me all the time, what's the best form of exercise to do, right? The answer is one that you're going to stick at. Do you know what I mean? Because what's good for me, I enjoy it because I keep doing it, right? So if you don't start running, if you're going to stop running after 10 minutes. And I think it's the same with social media. You choose a platform that actually you think you could do. But my advice would be just stick with one. Do that one really well. And if you're not sure which one to start with, figure out where the majority of your customers are and go with that one. That's always my theory. So if you're dealing with teenagers, you don't want to be on Facebook. Let's be real, right? If you're dealing with millennials, let's try Instagram. See what's going on there. But I think stick with one, do one really well, and like Dan said, just have a go. It's you've got to do it. I was talking with a friend of mine this morning, who I collared to come and work in the warehouse for the day, and we were talking about the movie. The movie The Empire Strikes Back. You ever seen this movie? If you're a Star Wars fan, you'll know what it is, right? And I did this talk once at an event which said why I think Yoda is wrong. And it was about a scene in this movie where Luke Skywalker's trying to raise the X-Wing fighter out of the swamp. If you're a Star Wars fan, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you've never seen the movie, you'll be like, what is he talking about?
Yeah.
And there's this scene where Luke Skywalker says, okay, I'll try, right, after the instruction from Yoda. And Yoda goes, no, do not. What is it? There is no try. Do or do not. And actually, I think he was wrong, because I think there is just try. Just have a go. Just have an experiment and see what works. So I agree with Dan.
Yeah.
And I think that's totally right. There's not a lot of risk to just trying something, as long as you're don't do anything stupid. Come on, please. But assuming that you're not doing, that you're just trying something, there's really not a lot of risk. What's the worst that happens? Nobody engages with your post. Okay, that's all right. So we move on and we try something else. And I think I just want to reiterate, totally right about you cannot be on every channel at once and be good at it. You got to focus at what you like. I started on Twitter because I was a college newspaper editor, and I still love the idea of having to fit a tweet into a certain amount of characters, like I'm writing a headline. Like that's how I write. And so it fits me really well. Whereas I am not the biggest fan of being on video all the time. And so, don't look at my Snapchat profile. You're not going to there. Okay, but that's me. And
you have a Snapchat profile?
I have one mostly just to check out what my kids are doing. That's pretty much the whole reason for it.
Okay, Chloe, do you have a Snapchat profile?
I don't think I do. I may have set one up several years ago and gone, oh, I ought to be on Snapchat, and then I've forgotten it. And because it's like I find Snapchat, TikTok. I know I need to know what they are, but I don't think they're yet the right place for me to be advertising. Not least because I'm not the biggest fan of ad hoc video and being an ad hoc video, because I find it quite hard work. I like a planned webinar.
Your audience probably isn't there, and
exactly.
Right. So what Matt said is totally right. When people ask me, well, what channel do I have to be on? I always give them a disappointing answer, which is, well, tell me where your customers are. I know what you want me to say. You want me to say, well, you got to be on Facebook and LinkedIn, but that's not true. That it depends on who your customers are and where they want to be. Matt gave the example of millennials. I worked at Humana, where we sold Medicare products to seniors. We didn't have to be on Snapchat then, right? We only had Facebook, because that we know grandma and grandpa on Facebook, and that was a great channel for us. So know your customer and know where they are.
Yeah, and I think that it's worth focusing in as well, because there's so much to learn about each channel if you want to do it well. On the face of it, a lot of them seem quite similar. Some kind of graphic, some kind of text, maybe a hashtag. But actually, if you want to do them well, there's whole strategies to learn of when to post, how to post, and all this nuance to get. So it makes so much sense to just focus in on less than all of them. I suppose let's ask a slightly spurious question. Is there any point in any e-commerce business working on LinkedIn?
Yes.
Oh, I thought I was going to get a no then, and you both.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Sorry, it was a short answer, but yes. Yeah. We were having this conversation yesterday, me and the marketing team. We were chatting away, and we're just about to launch a new e-commerce business. And we're like, where do we go? We've had unusual, unexpected success with LinkedIn. We were like, oh, that's interesting. Did not expect that. We tried it. We had a go. Coming back to Dan's point, let's just have a go and see what happens. And we were blown away. We were like, oh my goodness. Well, LinkedIn has just as sort of defied my expectations. Wow. So I would say yes. But again, if your customers are there.
Right. And I would say it depends what you're selling. I mean, I just talked with a woman who is the chief happiness officer at a company called Habit Nest, which creates the habit journals, different kinds of journals for being more productive, or they even have ones for like tracking your weightlifting or your exercising. Well, if you were selling a productivity journal, I think LinkedIn would be a great place to be because that's the kind of audience that's probably interested. I'm not sure I would market the weightlifting journal on LinkedIn. But, so it's your audience and your product. And I think there's plenty of products that could be very applicable to LinkedIn. And the good news is since we as users don't see very much e-commerce on LinkedIn, it's likely to stand out more.
Yeah.
And do you think, because we've touched there kind of on having different platforms for different product, I often think there's also an element of, it's not just about where your customers are, it's about where they are when they're thinking about your product. Mm-hmm. Because there may be a load of people on LinkedIn who do weightlifting, but they're not thinking about weightlifting when they're on there. They're thinking about weightlifting when they're on Instagram, sharing selfies of how pumped they look. I would assume.
I think this is a fascinating concept, and I would take a step back and compare social media here to another channel, which is search. And the way that I look at it is that search is so powerful because people are demonstrating their intent, right? If I type weightlifting into Google, we now know that I'm interested in weightlifting. That is huge. And I'm interested in it right now. If you go onto Facebook and you put an ad and target me because I've expressed an interest in weightlifting, that's okay, but I may not be thinking about weightlifting right now. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's the big difference, is if you need to talk to somebody that is interested at this moment, then I would be putting more money in search, to be honest. I know this is about organic. If you were spending money, I'd be putting it in search, because at least in search, the person's saying, I'm interested and I'm interested right now. If we think about the experience, because I'm a CX guy, of being on, let's say, Facebook, you're flipping through, you're scrolling through your feed, you're looking at baby pictures, you're looking at a funny cat video, you're looking at this and this, and now all of a sudden somebody interrupts you by trying to sell you something. What do you think the chances are that you hit them at exactly the right time? They're not only open to being interrupted, but that they're in the mood to buy your product at that moment. To me, it's like throwing a dart and blindfolded, right? Like you might hit it, but that's a big challenge. Whereas on search, you at least know that person's interested at the moment. And so I think, if you bring it back to organic, it's actually less about selling and just more about creating conversation to maybe drum up somebody thinking, some interest in your product or at least discussion about your product. But to me, that's the main difference between those two channels, and something that you really have to think about, especially if you're going to put money somewhere, because most companies, especially small businesses, have a very limited amount of money that they can spend, and you got to make every dollar count.
And even more limited time, which is often where the social media side of things hits. Often, I think people, I know I can be guilty of this, of tackling the fact that on social, you've got that audience that you're interrupting and they may not be interested in you at that moment. And I know I'm guilty of kind of going, well, then let's just tweet a lot and hit them at the right time, which I know, more than one tweet a week is probably a good move, but, one every minute of the day is probably a bad move. So, should we be more happy with the fact that let's rephrase it. Should we get very focused on when we do this social? Can we identify a good time to do it as well as a good platform on which to do it? Matt, as you're staring at the sky, I'm guessing you'd like me to go to Dan with this question.
I'm just trying to think what the answer to that question would be for us, because there's software that figure it out, isn't there? There's software that figures out where your highest engagement is. I don't know.
Yeah, our scheduling.
That's why I point you to is that it is it's difficult to pinpoint that, and even when you get at where's your audience most engaged, it doesn't mean they're going to be engaged on the day that you send out your post, right? And so again, let's go back to what channel are we talking about? If you're trying to sell something on Twitter, that's hard. It's really hard to sell something on Twitter because we know the life of a tweet is about 90 seconds. So the chances of you getting it in exactly that moment is awfully challenging. And so I would try to be thinking about a channel like a Facebook where you can drum up a little bit more discussion and that post lasts longer. And now you've been able to get in front of a lot of different people at a lot of different times and increase the chance of your success.
Yeah.
So where do we go for longer lasting posts if Twitter's only 90 seconds? Because I always think Twitter's a bit longer lasting than Instagram, but am I wrong in that? Putting you on the spot here, Dan.
Look, I'm not speaking from any, I don't have the data with me, but from what I've read in studies before, I think you're right that Twitter and Instagram, it's certainly Snapchat, are all about, immediacy. The posts don't last very long. People are scrolling really fast. Whereas something like a Facebook or a LinkedIn, you've got content that's likely to last a little bit longer. I sometimes post on LinkedIn and a week later, people are still commenting on it. And so the platforms are different in that way, but I think that's how I would separate them.
Yeah. You've also kind of got to test it out, haven't you? Because different niches or different niches of conversation on these, because these platforms, they are not one homepage. They are, you see through the lens and the group of people that you've become connected to and all the rest of it. So you will find, on, I don't know, comedy Twitter, things last this long, but in business Twitter, they might last this long. So it's also about getting to grips with how your audience respond. But I'm going to pause for a second and just to say we've got a few more people who've joined us now. And just to reiterate, if you're out there watching right now, hello. Thanks for joining us. If you've got a question, anything at all to do with the wonderful world of organic social media, from the really complicated to the really simple, we don't mind any questions. Please do put them in the chat box. I highly recommend you put them in the chat box now, because if you all wait till the end, which sometimes happens, I won't have a chance to ask all those questions for you. So please do questions early if you've got them, and I will do my best to get some good answers out of our panelists. And it strikes me to get us into a slightly different yet similar tack is we have people joining us on the webinar from at least 3 different countries in two or three different continents from what I've managed to work out today. So are there different approaches in different countries these days? I know the UK and the US tend to be quite similar, but when we go beyond that, are we seeing big shifts globally? Matt, you are nodding away there.
Yes, I would say, again, how your customer is in the States versus how your customer is in Japan. Well, they're going to use very different mechanisms. They're going to use very different social media. So we have a global brand, for example, that is literally shipped to every country on the nation. You don't, what works over in Asia and what works over in the US is very, very different. So that's where it starts to get a little bit more nuanced and complex, I think, is, if you're wanting to do that, that's just a whole world of pain in some respects. But it's kind of like, well, okay, if it's there and the customers are there and the market's there, then I'll invest in the social media platform that will meet my customer in the countries that I'm trying to, get into. So I don't know, is that a long answer to your question? I'd say yes, it changes in different countries. But that said, every country accesses Twitter. Every country, most countries, certainly all the English-speaking countries will access Twitter, the big 5. You've got the States, Canada, the UK, New Zealand, and Australia, haven't you? They call them the big 5. They're on Twitter, they're on Instagram, they're on Facebook. So I think some of them do have a much broader, wider reach.
I would say 2 things. The first is that is why scheduling software is a godsend. So you can tweet in the middle of the night if you want while you're sleeping by scheduling ahead of time. But I would actually throw it back to you guys because, and here's why. America is sort of known for being a little egocentric. And so we all think that if we post between 9 and 5 on the Eastern time zone, that everybody's going to see our posts in the world. And clearly that's not true. I've certainly, as I was talking about just doing it before, I've experimented with posting in the middle of the night, with posting earlier in the morning so that Europeans might be more likely to see my posts. But what's interesting to me is I still continue to get the best engagement during the day in the United States, even from people overseas. So I would kind of push back to you guys and say, hey, you're probably 6, 7, 8 hours ahead of me right now. I'm in Chicago. How do you use social, and are you adhering to UK hours or to US hours, and are you cognizant of it? Because I can tell you in the US, I think most people are not, and they should be, but they're just not.
Well, what we do here at eCommerce MasterPlan to promote the podcasts is we try and post. I do a little bit in the morning in the UK to cover off the UK via my account, and then via the 2 podcast accounts, we tend to do things from about 4 o'clock onwards in the UK, because it's 4:30 right now. Dan, what time is it where you are?
It is 10:30 in the morning.
Yeah, so we go 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Everyone in the UK is starting to go a bit, I'll go and play on social for half an hour. And then we hit the US, and then we carry on through the evening, which can be good for the UK. So we try to overlap it for the 2. We ignore Australia appallingly. So sorry, any Aussies who've got up at some ungodly hour to join us live for this, but any of you who are watching it on replay. So we try and do that. But I actually had a meeting with my social guy yesterday, and we said we're going to try and work out what our audience looks like, because LinkedIn is a key channel for us. So we're going to try and work out for each of our pages who the people following those pages are. And if they're almost all UK, then we'll do kind of from 3 till 5. So we're building the US, but we're appealing to the UK. Because at the moment we're posting like 9 p.m. UK, which is kind of lunchtime afternoon US, which may or may not be good. Because if they're all from the UK, it's a terrible time to post. And then try and work that out and try and do a bit of a geographic look at who our followers are, and then position the timing for where we want to grow, but not ignoring the existing followers. That's what we're doing at the moment. But like you say, it may be completely terrible, and we may be, it may not increase the engagement, because you can do it for when people are awake, but it's when are they most interested? In my case, when are people most interested in finding out about a podcast? Even if they're working, is it during their working day, or is it in the evenings? Is it at the weekends? It's tricky. It's tricky. How about you, Matt? Have you got any thoughts on time zones and geographies?
Again, I think it depends on what it is. So like with our beauty company, our online beauty company, we don't really care because we don't ship to the States. With other companies where we do ship to the States, we definitely care. And like with the podcast as well, for me, 8 p.m. seems to be the magic time, because you've got most of America is up and ready and going by 8 p.m. You've got New Zealand waking up, and you've got, actually, I think the Europeans are kind of getting used to the night thing because of the States. And so by 8 p.m., most families in the UK have put their kids to bed. Do you know what I mean? And they're quite happy to sit down and do a little bit of something, usually in front of the telly, right? But and so I think it is fascinating being in this global market, thinking of all the different time zones that is going on. I would agree with you though, Dan. My experience of people in the States is they don't think out of the 3 or 4. Is it 4 time zones you have there? The 4. I don't think they think out of that. Genuinely, I really don't. And I think if you're in America and you're listening to this, and you're talking about, let me tell you when the podcast goes live, or let me tell you when we're going to do this webinar, they'll always put like 5 p.m. EST, right? Every single person in the rest of the world has got to go to some kind of conversion thing and go, what does that mean? And I think one of the tricks I've learned is when it comes to putting times on things like a webinar, I will put EST, I will put GMT, but I'll put 1 or 2 of the time zones in there so people can start to figure out where they fit. Do you know what I mean? And I quite like that, and that seems to have good resonance. That seems to work well.
Yeah, I have to say, for me, I say first off, the Americans are ahead of most people in Europe, because most people in Europe just put their own time. And you're left to go, what they put 5 p.m. Where is it 5 p.m.? But it has been one of the things which is going slightly off topic that has really frustrated me this year when tuning in to, I've attended a lot of virtual conferences this year because I haven't had to fly to them. It's been brilliant. But I much prefer the platforms that convert the times when the live things happen to your own time zone. Oh, so much better. Anyway, taking us off topic. So I wanted to, we got about 20 minutes
just to say, Chloe, to say, Dan, I now get you, and you like scheduling software because you've just tweeted 4 minutes ago. I thought that was very well done.
Magic. Well, and to be fair, just to clarify for everybody, the reason that I do that is so that I can focus on the social side of social media. So when I go on to Twitter, I spend my time engaging, and instead of having to spend my time tweeting. And I think that's really important. It's not that I'm trying to automate being on a social channel. It's that, to me, there's two parts. There's the pushing out part that can be automated, and there's the engagement part, which I always do myself. And when I go on to Twitter and I'm going to spend, 15 minutes, 20, half an hour, it's all going to be responding and engaging. And I think that's what grows an audience. That's what gets people to continue to follow you. So yeah, I can tweet while I'm standing right here like magic. And you saw I didn't move. But
mind tweeting.
But if somebody comments on that tweet, when we get off of this show, I will go and respond to them.
Yeah. And I like the fact you make that point. I think often people think that by putting a scheduling tool in place, they're going to be saving themselves time. But actually, you don't save yourself time. You enable yourself to use the time better. So one of the reasons I like scheduling tools is because I can get myself into the mindset of writing great social copy, plan it all out. So I don't have to be in the mindset of great social copy every single day.
Yeah,
I can go and create some great social copy, schedule it all out, and then every day I can go in and I can respond and I can get involved, which I find is a lot easier than the creation bit. So, well, to be fair, I make someone else do most of the creation bit these days. But that brain, giving yourself the brain space to do certain things, I find is quite a great bit of scheduling too. Do you use scheduling, Matt?
I was going to say, what scheduling tool do you actually use?
Oh, Dan, you first.
I use one called Lately. It's at trylately.com. I know the founder and CEO she's just amazing. And what I like about Lately is I can plug in one of my blogs or one of my podcasts, and it will actually read the transcription and generate multiple posts for me. And then I just go in and quickly edit them and schedule them all in bulk. So I really like that platform, and that helps me to, we were talking before about how often you should tweet or how often you should post. And certainly on Twitter, I do think you have to have probably more than you think because of the lifespan of a tweet. And so I use that platform so that I can take one blog post, generate, say, 20 posts off of it over the next couple of weeks, and be like, all right, I'm done with that post. And off it goes.
We use two tools actively, and a third one that I need to bring back partly, and it's just gone higher up the list of things I need to do based on what Dan just said. So similar to Dan's, we've got a tool called Missing Letter, which creates all that stuff for you, which we stopped using because I thought we were posting too much, but I think I was wrong because it has like some legacy stuff that's still going out that gets really great engagements. It's like, Chloe, why aren't you still doing this? So we need to go back and reinvigorate that one. But the two we use actively right now is one called Metricool, so Metricool, that does great analytics, and we use that to schedule Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And then we use Tailwind. So we had Chloe Bubert from Tailwind in our podcast series about this, talking about scheduling. And we use Tailwind to schedule our Instagram and our Pinterest, which we've just rolled out. We've just started using it for Pinterest this week. And we've been using it for Instagram for a while. And it will enable you to... we use that one because only a few people can do Instagram scheduling, because they have a really restrictive API, and you can schedule all your kind of square posts, the normal posts. You can tell I'm really good at Instagram. The square ones, it'll do the square ones for you automatically. And then the long ones, which I know are called stories, it does the stories, so they get sent to the app at the right time. And then you click the button on the Tailwind app, and that kind of spits it into Instagram itself for you. So it doesn't automate them, but it does it so it becomes kind of idiot proof. It just sends you the image and the graphics. What about you, Matt? What are you using?
That's a good question. I have no idea what the guys are using at the moment. It's a significant lack of detail, I appreciate, on my part. I know we have tried all kinds of things, from HubSpot to Hootly. Is it still called Hootly? Hootsuite, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I think we must have tried Tailwind in the past. I think the guy that was using them left, and so I don't think anyone's picked that up. I've not tried lately. And the other one, what was you said? Missing Stories or Missing whatever that was. Yeah. I've not tried that one either.
Yeah, they're quite. If you're creating lots of written content, they work really well. But if you're an e-commerce business that's not creating blogs, I think you'd struggle to get them to work. I would guess. I like that little detour into the world of scheduling. But what I was going to say was, is there? Because we've got about 10 minutes to wrap up. So if everyone's got a question, ask it now, because you've still got time for me to ask it. But
I have a question I have to ask you, Chloe, just on the same topic. Is how is it possible that that Americans and British pronounce the word schedule so differently, and yet you guys got it completely right and we got it completely wrong? Because I think schedule is one of my favorite British English words, and I don't like how Americans say schedule, but I don't know how that happens.
That wasn't one I had on my list of words I need to pronounce twice on the podcast. Schedule.
I love it though. I think it's so much. I think the British version of it is so much better, but I don't know. I love
it's interesting because it is inconsistent though, because we say school, we don't say. Do you know what I mean? It's
school.
So we have that sound. But then, if I speak on behalf of the British public, we are British and we think we're right. So we just have our own set of rules, and we're just going to do whatever we want to
do. To share another one with you, Dan, the one which when I was in the States at the Infusionsoft conference that made everyone laugh every time I said it was Renaissance, which apparently is hilarious because it's Renaissance. And I was staying at the Renaissance Hotel. So I kept saying, I'm going back to the Renaissance. They look at me and just giggle. It was very bizarre.
Well, I just found a T-shirt recently, and I'm not going to try to share my screen because I don't want to mess it up. But it says, "English is weird. It can be understood through tough, thorough thought, though." Through tough, thorough thought, though, are all words that look exactly alike in print and are pronounced differently. So we speak a very strange language.
We do speak a very strange language. Right, look, one last question to wrap us up, which is, if there was one thing you would think an e-commerce business ought to be testing in the next couple of months, probably not in December because, hey, it's December, but there's lots of new stuff around in social, both in the individual, in terms of tactics, in terms of strategies, in terms of tools, in terms of whole platforms. If there was one thing you would suggest people should give a go to, those who are already up and running and doing some stuff on social, who know what they're up to, what would it be? Either of you could jump in on this one, or we can have 5 minutes silence.
I think it means it's my turn again. I'll give you a minute to think about it, Matt. I would say that you should try not only being more responsive and engaging with customers, but start to measure something that I think almost no company measures. We all look at engagement rate on our marketing posts. Look at engagement rate on your engagement posts, on your customer service posts. One of the things that I found at a company that I was working at is that when we responded to customer service inquiries, even if we resolved the inquiry with one post, the engagement after that, after the customer service experience was over, was unbelievable. It was 100 times what our marketing posts were. And so the point here is that when you solve a problem for a customer, they're going to keep engaging with you. They're going to say thank you. They're going to say how much they love your brand. They're going to keep the conversation going. And that's what we're looking for in our marketing. And so again, I come back to where I started, which is that to me, experience is how you get more people talking about your brand. And in social, the experience is actually engaging with your customers. Chloe mentioned early on how great it feels when a company just does something simple like retweets you and you feel like you're on top of the world, or they respond to you and they say, hey, Dan, thanks so much for being a customer. We love you back, or whatever it is. It feels really good. So up your game in terms of responding, and be sure to respond to people that are complimenting your brand as well as the ones that are having issues.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
And Matt, you're not going to get away with it.
No, it's fine. I think the thing, I guess, what am I playing with in 2021, right? What am I thinking social media wise, organic social media? One is, I think we need to be much more on our game where YouTube's concerned. That's my observation going from this year. We need to be, YouTube is by far the most successful social media platform for us in terms of evergreen content. Do you know what I mean? A video we put on 3 years ago is still getting watched today. A tweet I put up 3 minutes ago is not getting viewed today. Do you know what I mean? So in terms of longevity, YouTube is nuts. And the other thing that I'm thinking more and more is actually, it's good to respond on social media. So a customer gets on there and writes something and we respond. The thing that I want to experiment with a lot more next year is actually connecting first with the customer via social media. So if a customer has come onto our website, they've ordered some product and it's their first time, why can't I do the Gary V thing and just send a video to that customer saying, hey, listen, really appreciate you being on there, and just do something a bit mad in a simple, like 10, 15-second video, and post that to them on social media, and then see if I'm kind of giving them the stuff to post out. So that will be the second thing that we'll try. So I don't know if that answers your question, but for me, they're the two things: focusing on YouTube and being much more proactive in reaching our customers and connecting with them on social media.
Nice. I like it. There you go, everyone. A few more things to add to the potential 2021 testing list. Well, look, we are about to wrap up. So what I need to do to switch us back to that, I need to share. Where's it gone? Share this screen with you guys and say a big thank you to Matt and Dan for joining us. We will be dropping you all a video, not a video, an email with all the replay information in it, so you can share it with your team, etc., etc. And that should be coming out tomorrow, and we'll include links to kind of some of the key things we've mentioned, some of those scheduling tools, and also the links you can see in front of you right now, and both the chap's podcasts, etc., etc. Just one last thing to tell you all, which is that in December this month, starting today, in fact, we are going content marketing crazy on the Keep Optimizing podcast. Today, we have a whole episode about blogging, how to do it for e-commerce businesses. Next week, we are doing digital PR and outreach with Spark Toro's Rand Fishkin. Yes, that is Rand, ex of Moz, SEO genius, and he shares a lot in that episode. We are then doing PR, normal PR, I suppose, getting those journalists talking about you with Mark Hook, and that is a fascinating episode. I made a lot of notes whilst we recorded that one. Then we're talking in Christmas week, we're doing content strategy itself and also design and redoing your content strategy with Shane Tilley from 99 Designs. And then we wrap up on the 30th of December with user generated content, which of course has lots of links in with social media with Joanna Steele. So that's what's coming up on the Keep Optimizing podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and all the rest of it, and also at keepoptimizing.com. Thank you all for joining us and tuning in. And thank you again, Matt and Dan, for being part of this. Thanks very much.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for having me.
I've hit buttons I didn't mean to hit then. Sorry, everybody. Right.